Some words wait a lifetime to be spoken. They sit in the back of someone's throat for years and years, heavy and patient, waiting for the right moment. Or maybe not the right moment, maybe just the last one. My grandmother spoke the truth to me on the very last day of her life. She was 86 years old. She was lying in a hospital bed with thin white sheets and machines that beeped in a slow, steady rhythm. Her hair, the beautiful silver hair that I used to braid when I was a girl, was spread across the pillow like threads of moonlight. She could barely breathe. Her voice was nothing more than air moving across dry lips, but her eyes, her dark brown eyes, were wide open, clear, alive, as if everything else in her body was shutting down except the part of her that needed to tell me something. She squeezed my hand, not hard. She didn't have the strength for hard anymore, but enough for me to lean in close. "Naomi," she whispered, my name, the name she gave me the day I was born. "I'm here, Grandma," I said. "I'm right here." She took a breath. It rattled in her chest like a pebble in an empty jar. And then she said 5 words that broke open 32 years of silence. "Your mother didn't leave you." I froze. The room didn't change. The machines kept beeping. The light kept falling through the window. But something shifted inside me, something deep and structural, like a wall cracking. "What did you say?" I whispered. Her eyes filled with tears, not the confused tears of an old woman losing her grip on the world. These were sharp, knowing tears. The tears of a woman who had carried a secret for so long that it had become a part of her bones. "She came back for you," Grandma said. "She came back so many times, and I turned her away every time. I turned her away." My hand went limp in hers. The room blurred. "I'm sorry, baby," she breathed. "I'm so sorry." And those were the last clear words my grandmother ever spoke to me. Within an hour, she closed her eyes. By morning, she was gone. And I was left sitting in that hospital room, holding the hand of the woman who raised me, the woman I loved more than anyone in the world, trying to understand how the person who gave me everything had also taken something from me that I could never get back. My mother. My name is Naomi Jean Carter. I was born in 1991 in a small town in Alabama called Cypress Bend. You won't find it on most maps. It's the kind of place where the roads turn to dirt once you leave the main street, where the summers are so hot the air itself seems tired, and where everybody knows your grandmother's maiden name. I grew up in my grandmother's house, a small yellow house on Beulah Road with a front porch that wrapped around one side and a backyard that stretched all the way to the tree line. There was a magnolia tree in the front yard, big and old and magnificent, and Grandma said it had been there since before she was born, since before her mother was born. She called it the family tree, not because of any branches on a chart, but because every generation of our family had sat beneath it. Grandma's name was Erlene Me Carter, but everybody in town just called her Miss Erlene. She was one of those women who the entire community depended on. When someone was sick, Miss Erlene brought soup. When someone died, Miss Erlene organized the meal train. When someone needed advice, they sat on Miss Erlene's porch and she listened with her hands folded in her lap, and she told them the truth even when it wasn't easy to hear. She was small, barely 5'2", but she had a presence that filled any room she walked into. She wore her hair in a bun every day, pinned back with the same 2 tortoiseshell clips she'd had since the 1970s. She smelled like lavender and biscuit dough. Her hands were rough from work, but gentle when they touched your face. She raised me from the time I was 3 days old. The story I grew up hearing was simple. My mother, her name was Jolene, had me when she was 17 years old. She was young. She was unprepared. She was overwhelmed. And 3 days after I was born, she left me with Grandma and disappeared. That was the story, the whole story according to Grandma. Jolene was too young. Jolene wasn't ready. Jolene chose a different path. Where did she go? I would ask, over and over, the way children do when they sense that the answer they're getting isn't the full one. "Away," Grandma would say, just that one word. Away. She would press her lips together and smooth the front of her apron with both hands, a habit she had when she wanted a conversation to end. "Is she coming back?" "You have me, Naomi. You have everything you need right here." And for a long time, that was enough, because Grandma was enough. She was more than enough. She was the sun and the moon and every star in between. She woke me up every morning with the same words. "Rise and shine, little flower. The Lord made this day just for you." She cooked breakfast, eggs, grits, toast with blackberry jam she made herself from the berries that grew along the fence. She walked me to school, holding my hand, even when I got old enough to be embarrassed by it. After school, she was always there. Always. Sitting on the porch with a glass of sweet tea, waiting. She would ask about my day, and she would listen, really listen, as if the small dramas of a child's life were the most important things in the world. She helped me with my homework. She taught me how to cook, standing on a step stool beside her at the stove, stirring pots, measuring flour with my small hands inside her big ones. She taught me how to sew, how to garden, how to pray. On Sunday mornings, she dressed me in my best clothes and we walked to Grace Baptist Church, where she sang in the choir. Her voice wasn't beautiful in the way a singer's voice is beautiful. It was beautiful in the way that truth is beautiful, strong and clear and unwavering. When she sang, "Amazing Grace," the whole congregation would go quiet, not because they were supposed to, but because they couldn't help it. She was everything to me. Mother, father, friend, teacher, protector. She was my whole world. I didn't have a father in my life. Grandma never spoke about him, and I learned early not to ask. The few times I tried, she got that same look, lips pressed together, hands smoothing her apron, and changed the subject. What I knew was this: he was someone Jolene had been involved with briefly. He was not from Cypress Bend. He had no interest in being a parent. That was all Grandma would say, and after a while I stopped needing more. The absence of a father hurt sometimes. I'd see other kids at school with their dads, at basketball games, at the father-daughter dance, at pickup time in the afternoon, and I'd feel a hollow ache in my chest. But Grandma always found ways to fill that space. She came to every game, every concert, every school play. She clapped louder than anyone. She brought homemade cookies for the whole team. Once, when I was about 10, there was a father-daughter breakfast at school. I came home with the flyer and put it on the kitchen table. I didn't say anything. I just put it there and sat down and waited. Grandma looked at the flyer. She looked at me. And then she said, "Well, I'm not a father, but I make better pancakes than any man in this town, so I'll go." And she did. She came to the breakfast in her church dress and her good shoes, and she sat with me, and she ate rubbery school pancakes with a smile on her face, and she didn't let me feel ashamed for 1 second. That was Grandma. She never let me feel like I was missing anything. But I was missing my mother, and no amount of love, no matter how deep, how constant, how fierce, could completely erase that absence. It lived in me like a quiet hum, a frequency I couldn't quite hear but could always feel. Especially at night when the house was dark and Grandma was asleep, I would lie in my bed and wonder, where was Jolene right now? What did she look like? Did she ever think about me? Did she know my name? Did she know I existed? And the biggest question of all, the one that kept me awake more nights than I can count, why wasn't I enough to make her stay? When I was 12, something happened that planted the first real seed of doubt in my mind. It was a Saturday in late October. Grandma had sent me to the store to get flour and sugar. The store was only 4 blocks away, and I was old enough to walk by myself. I took my time, kicking through the fallen leaves, enjoying the cool air after a long, hot summer. When I came back, I walked up the porch steps and reached for the screen door. But I stopped, because I could hear Grandma inside, talking to someone. Her voice was low and sharp, an edge to it that I almost never heard. "I told you not to come here," she said. I couldn't hear the other person clearly. Their voice was muffled, like they were standing farther away. But I could tell it was a woman, a younger woman. "Please," the woman said, just that one word. It was soft and broken and desperate. "You made your choice," Grandma said. "You made it a long time ago, and I'm not going to let you come in here and turn that child's world upside down." "She's my daughter, Mama." My heart stopped. Mama, the woman had called Grandma's Mama. It was Jolene. My mother was standing in the kitchen, and my grandmother was telling her to leave. I stood on the porch, frozen, the bag of flour and sugar heavy in my arms. I wanted to open the door. I wanted to run inside and see her face. I wanted to shout, "I'm here, I'm right here." But I didn't move. I couldn't. Fear held me in place, fear of what I would find, fear of what it would mean, fear of what Grandma would say. "You don't get to do this, Jolene," Grandma said. Her voice had softened, but only slightly. You don't get to disappear for 12 years and then show up and expect everything to be okay. I didn't disappear, Mama. You know that. You know why I left. You know what happened. What happened is that you left a 3-day-old baby on my kitchen table and walked out the door. That's what happened. That's not, Mama, please. That's not the whole story. You know it's not. There was a long silence. I heard footsteps, a chair scraping against the floor, and then Grandma's voice again, quieter now but firm as stone. Go home, Jolene. Wherever home is for you now, go back to it. Naomi is fine. She's healthy. She's happy. She's loved. And she doesn't need you confusing things. She needs her mother. She has one. She has me. More silence, and then the sound I will never forget as long as I live. A soft, choked sob, not Grandma's, the other woman's, my mother's. I heard the back door open and close, footsteps going down the back porch steps, and then silence. I stood there on the front porch for a long time before I went inside. When I did, Grandma was sitting at the kitchen table with her hands flat on the surface, staring at nothing. Her face was composed, but her eyes were red. I got the flour and sugar, I said, putting the bag on the counter. She looked up at me and smiled. Thank you, baby. Come sit down. I'll make us some lunch. She didn't mention the visitor. She acted as if nothing had happened. And I, confused, frightened, unsure of what I had heard or what it meant, didn't ask. But that night, lying in bed, I replayed the conversation over and over. Every word, every pause, every tone. She's my daughter, Mama. My mother had come for me, and my grandmother had sent her away. I didn't confront Grandma about it. I was 12. I didn't have the words. I didn't have the courage. And part of me, the part that loved Grandma so completely that the thought of challenging her felt like betrayal, didn't want to know the answer. Because what if the answer changed everything? What if the story I'd been told, Jolene left, Jolene didn't want me, Jolene chose something else, was a lie? And if it was a lie, what did that mean about Grandma? What did that mean about me? What did that mean about the life I was living? I wasn't ready for those questions, so I buried what I heard. I pushed it down into the same quiet place where I kept all the other things I didn't want to think about, and I kept living my life as if nothing had changed. But something had changed. Something small and sharp had lodged itself in my heart, like a splinter too deep to reach. And over the years, it worked its way deeper. The years that followed were outwardly normal. I went to school. I made friends. I joined the track team in high school because I discovered that running made the thinking stop, at least for a little while. I was fast. Not the fastest, but fast enough to win a few ribbons that Grandma hung on the refrigerator with magnets shaped like fruit. I graduated in 2009 and got a job at the local library. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved it. I loved the quiet, the order, the smell of old books. I loved helping people find what they were looking for, even when they didn't quite know what it was. Grandma was proud. She told everyone at church that her granddaughter worked at the library. She's smart, she would say. Gets it from me. And then she would laugh, and everyone would laugh with her, because Miss Erlene's laugh was the kind that made you feel warm inside whether you wanted to or not. At 21, I started dating a man named Leon. He was a mechanic who worked at the garage on Main Street. He was quiet, like me, steady, like Grandma. He had big hands and a soft voice, and he looked at me like I was the most interesting person he'd ever met. We got married when I was 23, a small wedding at Grace Baptist Church. Grandma sat in the front row in a lavender dress and cried through the entire ceremony. She said they were happy tears, and I believed her. Leon and I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, but I still visited Grandma every day. Every single day. I brought her groceries. I helped her with the garden. I sat on the porch with her in the evenings and listened to her stories, the same stories she'd told me 100 times before, but I never got tired of them. She was getting older. Her steps were slower. Her memory occasionally stumbled over names and dates, but her spirit was unchanged. She was still Miss Erlene, strong, loving, unshakable. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments when I would catch her looking at me with an expression I couldn't name. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It was something heavier, something older, like she was looking at me and seeing someone else at the same time. And sometimes, when she didn't know I was watching, I would see her go to her bedroom and close the door. I would hear the soft creak of a drawer opening, and then silence, long silence. And when she came out, her eyes would be damp, and she would smile too quickly and say, "Just tidying up." I knew she wasn't tidying up. I knew there was something in that room, in that drawer, that she returned to again and again, the way you return to a wound you can't stop touching. But I didn't ask. I had learned not to ask. I had been trained gently, lovingly, but firmly, not to push past the borders my grandmother had drawn. And so the splinter stayed, and the years kept passing. When I was 28, I got pregnant with my first child. A girl. Leon and I were over the moon. Grandma was ecstatic. "A girl," she said, clapping her hands. "Oh, Lord, a girl. We're going to dress her up so pretty. We're going to spoil her rotten." She immediately started knitting. Blankets, booties, little hats. She went through yarn like it was water. Her fingers, stiff with arthritis, moved those needles with a determination that bordered on defiance, as if she was telling her aging body that it would not slow down, not now, not when there was a great grandbaby on the way. We named her Ruby. Ruby Erling, after Grandma. When I told Grandma the middle name, she put both hands over her mouth and shook her head, and tears rolled down her face. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I wanted to," I said. "She should have your name. She should carry a piece of you." Ruby was born in June, and she was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a full head of dark hair, and a cry that could wake the whole neighborhood. Grandma held her for the first time and went completely silent. She just stared at Ruby's face for the longest time, not speaking, not moving. And then she said very softly, "She looks just like Jolene." I stiffened. Grandma rarely mentioned my mother's name. It was almost a rule, an unspoken boundary that neither of us crossed. "What?" I said. Grandma blinked, as if she'd caught herself saying something she shouldn't have. "I just meant she has that same dark hair," she said quickly. "That's all." She handed Ruby back to me and changed the subject, asking about the hospital food and whether Leon had remembered to bring the car seat. But the damage was done. The name hung in the air between us. Jolene. And with it came all the old questions, the old aches, the old confusion. "She looks just like Jolene." My daughter looked like the mother I had never known. Something shifted in me after Ruby was born. Becoming a mother changed me in ways I didn't expect. Not just the obvious ways, the exhaustion, the love, the fierce protectiveness. It changed the way I thought about Jolene. Before Ruby, I had accepted Grandma's story without much resistance. Jolene left. She didn't want me. End of story. I had built my identity around that absence. I was the girl who was left behind. The girl who was raised by her grandmother because her own mother didn't want her. It was painful, but it was familiar. It was mine. But now, holding Ruby in my arms at 3 in the morning, rocking her, feeding her, watching her sleep, I couldn't understand how anyone could walk away from this. How could you hold your baby, feel this weight, smell this smell, love this love, and then just leave? It didn't make sense. It had never made sense. But now, with Ruby in my arms, the not making sense of it felt urgent. It felt important. It felt like a door that needed to be opened. And behind that door was the memory I had buried for 16 years. The conversation I overheard on the porch when I was 12. "She's my daughter, Mama. You don't get to disappear for 12 years and then show up." "I didn't disappear, Mama. You know that. You know why I left." "She didn't disappear. She came back. She came back and Grandma turned her away." "Why?" The questions circled in my head like a bird that couldn't find a place to land. Why would Grandma do that? Why would she keep a mother from her child? What was she protecting me from? Or was she protecting me at all? I almost asked her. So many times I almost asked. I would be sitting on the porch with her, Ruby on my lap, and the words would rise to the tip of my tongue. "Grandma, when I was 12, I heard you talking to someone in the kitchen." But every time I swallowed the words, because I was afraid of the answer, afraid of what it would do to us. Afraid that asking the question would be like pulling a thread that would unravel everything. So I stayed silent, again. And the splinter went deeper. Grandma's health started to decline when she was 84. It began with a fall in the kitchen. She tripped over the edge of the rug, the same rug that had been there for 30 years, and broke her hip. The surgery went well, but recovery was slow. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital and then another month in a rehabilitation center. She hated it. She hated the food, the noise, the fluorescent lights. She hated being dependent on strangers. "I want to go home," she told me every time I visited. "Take me home, Naomi." When she finally came home, she wasn't the same. She was slower, more cautious. The confidence that had always carried her seemed dimmed, like a lamp turned low. She used a walker. She stopped gardening because she couldn't bend down. She stopped going to church because the walk was too far and her pride wouldn't let her ask for a ride. I came over more often. Leon and I talked about having her move in with us, but our apartment was small and Grandma was stubborn. "I've lived in this house for 52 years, she said. "I'm going to die in this house." "Don't talk like that, Grandma." "I'm not being morbid, baby. I'm being practical. Now hand me that remote." Over the next 2 years, she had more falls, more hospital visits, a mild stroke that left her speech slightly slurred for a few weeks, heart problems that required medication she couldn't always remember to take. I hired a home aide, a woman named Donna who came in the mornings to help Grandma bathe and dress and eat. Grandma tolerated Donna the way she tolerated everything she didn't choose, with polite resistance and occasional sharp comments about the way Donna folded towels. But even with help, she was fatting. I could see it. The light in her eyes, the strength in her voice, the sharpness of her mind, all of it was slowly, slowly dimming. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily, like the sun going down. You don't notice each degree of fatting until suddenly you realize it's almost dark. In the spring of her 86th year, she had a heart attack. It happened in the middle of the night. Donna found her in the morning, lying on the bathroom floor, conscious but weak. The ambulance came. Leon and I met them at the hospital. The doctors were straightforward. Her heart was failing. There was damage that couldn't be repaired. They could keep her comfortable, but they couldn't fix what was broken. "How long?" I asked, standing in the hallway with the cardiologist. My arms crossed over my chest like I was trying to hold myself together. "Days," he said gently. "Maybe a week, I'm sorry." I went into her room. She was propped up on pillows, an oxygen tube in her nose, an IV in her arm. She looked small in that bed, smaller than I had ever seen her. The woman who had filled every room she entered now seemed swallowed by this one. But when she saw me, she smiled. That same warm, steady smile that had greeted me every day of my life. "Don't look at me like that," she said. Her voice was thin but clear. "Like what?" "Like I'm already gone. I'm still here, Naomi. I'm still here." I sat down beside her and took her hand. And for a while, we just sat together the way we had sat together 1,000 times before on the porch, at the kitchen table, in the church pew. Just the two of us, the way it had always been. She held on for 5 days. Leon brought Ruby to visit every afternoon. Ruby was 4 years old then, and she didn't fully understand what was happening, but she knew that great-grandma was sick and that she needed to be gentle. She would climb up onto the bed and lie beside Grandma and show her crayon drawings, and Grandma would study each one as if it were a masterpiece. "That's a beautiful horse," Grandma would say. "It's a dog, great-grandma." "Well, it's a beautiful dog." Those moments were precious. I held them in my heart like water in cupped hands, knowing they were slipping through. On the 5th day, a Thursday, something changed. Grandma was more alert than she had been in days. Her eyes were brighter. Her voice was stronger. The nurse told me this sometimes happened. A final surge of energy before the end, a last rally. Leon took Ruby home in the afternoon. He kissed Grandma's forehead and told her he loved her. She patted his cheek and said, "You take care of my girls." And then it was just the two of us. The room was quiet. The light was fading to amber outside the window. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Grandma looked at me for a long time. She studied my face as if she were memorizing it. And then she said, "Close the door, Naomi." I got up and closed the door. When I sat back down, she reached for my hand. Her grip was surprisingly firm. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." My heart began to beat faster. "Okay, Grandma." "I'm dying," she said simply. "I know that, you know that, and I cannot leave this world with this weight on me. I've carried it for too long, it's too heavy, I need to put it down." "What weight? What are you talking about?" She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were glistening. "Your mother didn't leave you," she said. Those words, those 5 words. I told you about them at the beginning of this story. But hearing them in that room, in that moment, with the beeping of the machines and the fading light and my grandmother's hand in mine, the impact was like nothing I can describe. It was like being underwater and suddenly breaking the surface. It was like a door that had been locked my entire life swinging wide open. "What do you mean?" I said. My voice sounded far away, even to myself. And then Grandma told me the truth, the whole truth, everything she had kept hidden for 32 years. Jolene was 17 when she had me. That part was true. She was young. She was scared. She wasn't married. My father was a boy from the next town over who disappeared the moment he heard the word pregnant. That part was true too. But the rest, the part about Jolene leaving, about choosing to walk away, about not wanting me, that was not true. None of it was true. What actually happened was this. Jolene had me at the county hospital on a cold January morning. The delivery was hard. She was in labor for almost 20 hours. But when it was over and they put me in her arms, she cried and held me and said, "Hello, my little girl. I've been waiting for you." She brought me home to Grandma's house because that's where she lived. She was 17. She had nowhere else to go. Grandma was there, and for the first 3 days, everything was fine. Jolene nursed me. She rocked me. She barely put me down. But on the third night, Jolene had what the doctors would later call a severe postpartum episode. She became confused, agitated, frightened. She was crying uncontrollably. She couldn't sleep. She told Grandma that she was hearing voices telling her she was a bad mother, that I would be better off without her. Grandma was terrified. She had never seen anything like it. She didn't understand it. In 1991, in a small town in Alabama, nobody talked about postpartum depression. Nobody even had a name for it. Mental health was not something people discussed openly. It was whispered about behind closed doors, and the whispers were usually unkind. Grandma called the doctor. He came to the house. This was old-fashioned, small-town medicine, and he examined Jolene and said she needed to rest. He gave her something to help her sleep. He said it would pass. But it didn't pass. Over the next few days, Jolene got worse. She stopped eating. She stopped talking. She sat in her room and stared at the wall and wouldn't hold me. She was afraid to hold me. She told Grandma that she was afraid she would hurt me, not because she wanted to, but because the voices were telling her to. Grandma made a decision. She later told me it was the hardest decision of her life. She drove Jolene to a hospital in Montgomery, a hospital with a psychiatric ward, and she checked her in. Jolene was there for 6 weeks. During those 6 weeks, Grandma took care of me. She fed me with bottles, she rocked me, she sang to me. She fell in love with me completely, totally, irreversibly. I became hers, not just legally, not just practically, but emotionally. In her heart, I became her child. When Jolene came home from the hospital, she was better. The medication was working. The voices were quiet. She wanted to be my mother again. She reached for me. She wanted to hold me. But Grandma wouldn't let her. Grandma told me this part with tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to excuse it. She didn't try to justify it. She just told me what happened, plainly and honestly, the way you confess something that has been eating you alive. "I was afraid," she said. "I was so afraid, Naomi. I was afraid that she would get sick again, that the voices would come back, that something terrible would happen to you. And I couldn't take that risk. I couldn't put you in danger." So Grandma told Jolene that it was better for everyone if she left, that I was settled, that I was bonded to Grandma, that disrupting my routine would be harmful. She told Jolene that the kindest thing she could do, the most loving, most selfless thing, was to walk away and let Grandma raise me. "You're not well enough," Grandma told her. "You need to take care of yourself first, get stable, get on your feet, and then maybe someday we can talk about it." Jolene was devastated. She argued. She begged. She cried for 3 days straight. But she was 18 years old, broke, with no job, no education, no support system outside of Grandma, and Grandma was immovable. In the end, Jolene left. Not because she wanted to, not because she chose to, because she believed what Grandma told her, that leaving was the loving thing to do. She went to Montgomery. She got a job washing dishes at a restaurant. She found a room in a boarding house. She took her medication. She went to therapy. She did everything she was supposed to do. And then when she was 20, when I was 3, she came back. She came back to Cypress Bend and knocked on Grandma's door and said, "I'm better now, I'm stable. I have a job, I have an apartment. I want my daughter." Grandma said no. "She doesn't know you," Grandma said. "You'd be a stranger to her, it would confuse her, it would hurt her." Jeline came back again when I was 5. Grandma said no. She came back when I was 7. Grandma said no. She came back when I was 9. Grandma said no. She came back when I was 12. That was the visit I overheard, the one on the porch, the one that planted the splinter. Every single time, Grandma turned her away. Every single time, Grandma told her the same thing: Naomi is happy. Naomi is loved. Naomi doesn't need the disruption. Come back when you can prove you're truly stable. Come back when you can offer her something better than what she has. And every time Jeline left, heartbroken, empty-handed, alone. She wrote letters, Grandma whispered, her voice barely audible now. She wrote letters every year for your birthday, for Christmas, sometimes just because she missed you. She sent them here to the house. "Where are they?" I asked. I could barely speak. "In the bottom drawer of my dresser," Grandma said. "Under the green blanket, every letter she ever wrote, I kept them all. I never threw away a single one." I stared at her. You kept them, and you never gave them to me." "I know," she said. Her voice broke. A tear slid down the side of her face and disappeared into the pillow. I know what I did. I told myself I was protecting you. I told myself every single day that I was doing the right thing. But I wasn't, Naomi. I was being selfish. I was afraid of losing you. I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you would leave me. You would go to her and you would leave me, and I would be alone." She squeezed my hand. Her grip was trembling. "You were mine," she whispered. "From the moment I held you, you were mine, and I couldn't let you go, not even to give you back to the person you belonged to." I sat in that chair for a long time after she finished talking. I didn't speak. I couldn't. The room was full of everything she had just told me, 32 years of lies and love and fear and regret, and I couldn't find my way through it. My mother didn't leave me. She was taken from me, or rather, I was taken from her, by the woman I loved most in the world, by the woman who gave me everything, by the woman who was lying in this bed, dying, telling me the truth with her last breath because she couldn't face God with this weight on her soul. How do you hold both of those things at the same time? How do you love someone and feel betrayed by them in the very same heartbeat? I looked at Grandma. She was watching me with those dark eyes, waiting for my reaction, waiting for judgment, waiting, I think, for me to pull my hand away. But I didn't pull my hand away. Because even in that moment, even with the pain crashing through me like a wave, I could see her. The real her. Not a villain, not a liar. A frightened woman who loved too much and too tightly. A woman who made a terrible choice and then had to live with it every single day for 32 years. She was wrong. What she did was wrong, I knew that, she knew that. But she was also the woman who braided my hair, who packed my lunches, who walked me to school, who came to the father-daughter breakfast in her church dress, who knitted blankets for my baby, who called me her little flower every morning. She was both things, the one who loved me and the one who wronged me, and I had to find a way to hold both. "I love you, Grandma," I said. She let out a sound, a small, breaking sound, like something inside her finally giving way. "Do you forgive me?" she asked. I leaned down and pressed my forehead to hers. I could feel her breath, shallow and warm. "I forgive you," I said. And I meant it, not because what she did was okay, but because holding on to anger in that room, in that moment, with the machines beeping and the light fading and my grandmother's heart giving out, holding on to anger felt like a waste of something precious, something I didn't have much of left. Time. She closed her eyes, she smiled, and she whispered one last thing. "Find her, Naomi. Find your mother. She never stopped loving you, not for one day." Within the hour, she slipped into unconsciousness. By morning, she was gone. The funeral was on a Wednesday. The whole town came. Grace Baptist Church was full to overflowing. People stood in the back and along the walls and out onto the front steps. Reverend Harris spoke about Grandma's life, her kindness, her faith, her devotion to her community and her family. The choir sang "Precious Lord, Take My Hand," which was her favorite hymn. Aunt June, Grandma's younger sister, read a poem she had written. Leon carried the casket with 5 other men from the church. And I sat in the front row with Ruby on my lap and I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to. I had plenty of tears left, but because I was holding something inside me that was bigger than grief. I was holding the truth. And the truth was so heavy, so enormous, that there wasn't room for anything else. After the funeral, after the food, after the visitors, after the casseroles and the handshakes and the she's in a better place now, after all of it, I went back to the yellow house. Leon offered to come with me, but I told him I needed to go alone. The house was dark and quiet. It smelled like her lavender and biscuit dough, and for a moment, standing in the doorway, I could almost believe she was still there, sitting in her chair, waiting for me on the porch. But she wasn't. I went to her bedroom. I knelt beside the dresser. I opened the bottom drawer. Under the green blanket, the one Grandma had crocheted years ago, I found them. Letters. Dozens of them, maybe 50, maybe more. Different sizes, different colors of envelopes, some thick, some thin. All of them addressed to Naomi Jean Carter, C.O. Erlene Carter. All of them in the same handwriting, rounded, careful letters, slightly shaky in the early ones, more confident in the later ones. And in the corner of each envelope, a return address. Different cities over the years, Montgomery, Birmingham, Atlanta, Savannah, but always the same name. Jeline Carter. My mother had written to me every year for 32 years. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, long letters, short notes. She had poured her heart onto paper, year after year, envelope after envelope, and sent them to the yellow house on Beulah Road. And Grandma had put every single one in this drawer, unopened. No, wait, not all of them were unopened. Some of the envelopes had been carefully slit along the top. Grandma had read them. She had read my mother's letters and then put them back in the drawer. She had read them, and she had still kept them from me. I sat on the floor of Grandma's bedroom, and I read every single letter. It took hours. The light changed around me from afternoon to evening to night, and I didn't move. I just read. The earliest letter was dated January 14, 1994, my 3rd birthday. Dear Naomi, it began. Today you are 3 years old. I wonder what you look like now. I wonder if your hair is still curly the way it was when you were born. I wonder if you like cake. I hope someone is giving you cake today. I hope someone is singing to you. I want you to know that your mama loves you. I love you so much that sometimes it hurts to breathe. I think about you every minute of every day. I talk to you in my head. I tell you about my day. I tell you good night before I go to sleep. I'm getting better. I'm taking my medicine. I'm seeing a doctor who helps me with my thoughts. I'm working hard so that someday I can come and get you and we can be together. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Naomi. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Love, Mama. I pressed that letter to my chest, and I wept. The letters continued through the years. Each one was a window into my mother's life, her struggles, her progress, her setbacks, her hope. In 1997, she wrote about getting her GED. I walked across that stage and I thought of you. I thought, my girl is going to be so proud of me someday. In 2001, she wrote about a man she had met, a good man, she said, named Thomas, who treated her well. I told him about you. He said he can't wait to meet you. In 2004, she wrote about the visit to Cypress Bend when I was 12, the one I overheard. I went to see you today. I stood in your grandmother's kitchen and I begged her to let me see you. She said no. She always says no. I heard you come up on the porch. You were so close. I could have reached out and touched you. But your grandmother said it would upset you, and I believed her. I always believe her. Maybe that's my problem. In 2009, she wrote about seeing my high school graduation announcement in the local paper. Your grandmother sent it to the church newsletter. Somebody forwarded it to me. You graduated, Naomi. My baby graduated. I cried all day. In 2014, she wrote about hearing from Aunt June that I had gotten married. I wasn't there. I wasn't at my own daughter's wedding. I try not to be bitter, but sometimes the sadness is so big I can't see around it. In 2019, she wrote about Ruby. Aunt June told me you had a baby girl. A girl, Naomi. You're a mother now. You understand now, maybe, what it feels like to love someone so much that the world doesn't make sense without them. That's how I love you. That's how I've always loved you. The last letter was dated just 4 months before Grandma's death. It was short. Dear Naomi, I am 50 years old now. I have spent more of my life missing you than knowing you. I don't know if you will ever read these letters. I don't know if your grandmother gives them to you or throws them away. But I keep writing because writing to you is the only way I know how to be your mother. If you ever want to find me, I'm in Savannah, 412 Oleander Street. The door is always open. I love you. Mama. I found Jolene on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after Grandma's funeral. Leon drove. I sat in the passenger seat with the box of letters in my lap. Ruby was in the back seat, singing to herself, unaware of the magnitude of what was about to happen. The drive to Savannah took 4 hours. I didn't talk much. Leon didn't push me. He just drove, his hand occasionally reaching over to rest on my knee, steady and warm. We found Oleander Street in a quiet neighborhood near the river. Small houses with porches and flower boxes. Number 412 was a pale blue house with white shutters and a front garden full of marigolds and zinnias. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, unable to move. Take your time, Leon said. What if she doesn't want to see me? I said. What if she's angry? What if she's given up? She wrote you a letter 4 months ago, Leon said gently. She hasn't given up. I got out of the car. I walked up the path. I climbed the 3 porch steps. I stood in front of the door. I knocked. There were footsteps inside, the sound of someone setting something down, the lock turning. The door opened. And there she was. My mother. She was 50 years old. Her hair was dark like mine, but streaked with gray at the temples. Her face was round and soft. Her eyes were the same eyes I saw in the mirror every morning, dark brown, deep-set, full of something that was both strong and tender. She looked at me, and I watched recognition move across her face like sunrise. Slow at first, then all at once. Naomi, she said. Her voice was the thing that broke me. It was warm and uncertain, and full of a hope so fragile that it seemed like it might shatter if either of us breathed too hard. Hi, Mama, I said. She put both hands over her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. Her whole body began to tremble. Hi, baby, she whispered through her fingers. Oh my God, hi, baby. And then she reached for me, and I reached for her, and we held each other on that porch in the Savannah sunlight, 2 strangers who shared the same blood, the same face, the same 32 years of missing each other. She was shaking. I was shaking. We were both crying not pretty, quiet tears, but deep, shuddering sobs that came from a place so raw and buried that I hadn't even known it existed until that moment. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You don't have anything to be sorry for, I said. You didn't leave me. I know the truth now. Grandma told me. She pulled back and looked at me. Her face was wet and swollen and more beautiful than any face I had ever seen. She told you. On her last day, she told me everything. Jolene closed her eyes, and something shifted in her expression, a release, a letting go, like a fist that had been clenched for decades finally opening. I've been waiting for you, she said simply. My whole life I've been waiting for you. I took her hand. I'm here now, I said. Behind me I heard a car door open. Small footsteps on the path, Ruby's voice. Mommy, who's that? I turned and scooped Ruby up and turned back to Jolene, who was staring at the little girl in my arms with an expression of absolute wonder. Ruby, I said, this is your grandma, your other grandma. Jolene reached out with a trembling hand and touched Ruby's cheek. Ruby studied her seriously for a moment, the way 4-year-olds do, and then she smiled. Hi, Grandma, she said. Jolene laughed, a sound that was half joy and half release, and she said, Hi, sweet girl. Oh my, hi, you look just like your mama. We went inside. We sat at her kitchen table. We talked for 7 hours. That was 3 years ago. Jolene, Mama, I call her Mama now, comes to visit every other month. She stays in the guest room that we set up for her, the one with the yellow curtains that Ruby helped me pick out. She brings gifts every time, books for me, tools for Leon, dolls, and art supplies for Ruby. Ruby adores her. She calls her Grandma Jo, and she has already decided that Grandma Jo makes the best sweet potato pie in the world. Leon likes her too. He says she has the same stubborn strength that I have, and now he knows where I got it. It's not perfect. Nothing ever is. There are awkward moments. There are silences that stretch a little too long, filled with all the years we lost. Sometimes I look at her and feel a wave of sadness so deep it takes my breath away, not anger, not resentment, just a profound mourning for the time that was taken from us. We will never get those years back. I will never know what it was like to be raised by my mother. She will never know what it was like to watch me take my first steps, or lose my first tooth, or go to my first dance. Those moments are gone, and no amount of love or forgiveness can bring them back. But we have now, we have tomorrow. We have all the days that are left, and we are choosing, both of us, deliberately, carefully, to fill them with as much love as they can hold. I think about Grandma every day. I visit her grave and I bring magnolia flowers because they were her favorite. I talk to her. I tell her about Ruby's school projects and Leon's work and the new recipe I tried. I tell her about Jeline. I tell her I forgive her. And I do, truly, not because what she did was right, it wasn't. It was wrong. It caused damage that can never be fully repaired. But I forgive her because I understand her. She was a woman who loved her grandbaby so fiercely that she lost her way. She was afraid. She was proud. She was human. She gave me the best childhood she knew how to give. Every braid, every lunch note, every hymn she sang, that was real love. Imperfect love. Flawed love, but love all the same. And on her very last day, when she could have taken the secret to her grave, she chose to tell me the truth. She chose to open the drawer, even knowing that what was inside might change the way I saw her forever. That took courage. The kind of courage that only comes when you love someone more than you love your own image. I think that's the lesson, if there is one. The truth doesn't always arrive when you want it to. Sometimes it arrives at the very last moment, whispered from a hospital bed, carried on a dying breath. Sometimes it comes too late to fix everything, but just in time to start something new. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do, braver than keeping a secret, braver than carrying the weight, braver than protecting the people they love, is to finally let the truth out, to open the drawer, to hand over the letters, to say the words they've been holding inside for 32 years. Your mother didn't leave you. 5 words, spoken in a whisper, on the very last day. And those 5 words changed everything. They gave me back my mother. They gave Ruby another grandmother. They gave Jeline the daughter she never stopped fighting for. And they set my grandmother free. If you're holding something heavy today, a truth you're afraid to speak, a secret you think is protecting someone, a door you've been keeping locked, I want you to hear me. Don't wait for the last day. Don't wait until the machines are beeping and the light is fading and all you have left is a whisper. Tell the truth now, while your voice is strong, while there is time to heal, while the people you love can still look you in the eye and say, I forgive you. Because forgiveness is possible, even after 32 years, even after 50 letters kept in a drawer, even after a lifetime of silence. Forgiveness is possible, but only if someone is brave enough to begin. Grandma was brave, in the very last hour. She was brave. And because of her courage, 3 women who should have been together all along are finally sitting at the same table, laughing, crying, eating sweet potato pie. Together, the way it was always supposed to be.